You're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by somebody using AI better than you.
It's about, give me the challenges, give me the raw, because people want that. Imagine having an agent. You can't get a hold of me because maybe it's late hours. I need some sleep too. But you have your Val AI agent. You can now ask it, who owes me money?
Albert Ramos is a fractional CFO, turnaround operator, and the president of Valisights, an AI-powered finance platform helping bold fitness and wellness brands fix cash flow fast. From rebuilding nine-figure financial systems to launching agent-powered dashboards, he's a modern operator turning chaos into clarity at scale.
They want the truth, and I think there's a challenge on what is truly the truth. And when you're live, people are really enjoying the authentic, raw, and messiness, as they call it.
Are you an AI, Albert?
Look, it's me. I am not an avatar.
How can you prove that? Albert, can you tell me about the Valisights Podcast, please? What does Valisights mean to begin with?
Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, so Valisights is actually an organization company that I just launched with a gentleman and partner of mine named Jason Wells. You can find him at adaptable.ai as well as AI Dev Lab. And we're so excited. It's an AI-powered FP&A and strategic finance platform where we actually create, build, develop cash flow forecasting, as well as insights and recommendations when it comes to P&L and balance sheets. And so we saw so many players in the invoicing and AP and AR space. We got jealous. We saw the void in the FP&A strategic finance side, and we found that many owners, franchise owners, CEOs, private equity, for sure private equity, and then even CFOs wanted it to be outfitted and augmented with AI so that they can make decisions in real time faster versus having to take the time to manually build everything, manually maintain, and we can use the intelligence now. And I'm excited about what's to come. There's more under wraps that's going to be coming out soon. But it led to the Valisights podcast. What I found was there were so many finance leaders, FP&A leaders, even controllers and accounting leaders that wanted to chat about their pain points, but also talk about, the modern, what I call the modern finance leader. And so they come on the show. It releases every week. We're lined up through the rest of the year, similar to you, sir. And we're excited to get some of these big names. You'll see big names that are coming out that are very active on LinkedIn. That's one thing that I look for. And we'll be having just some great conversations about what's going well, what's not going well, and who needs to fix what in our industry.
So I'm loving this already. Something I want to double down on here, and we're going to go straight into podcast strategy. Why are you looking specifically for podcast guests who have a big followership / activity on LinkedIn?
Yeah, great question. So I'm very active on LinkedIn, by the way. And so I follow people like you and Jasmine Alec and some others that are all about the eyeballs, right? And I'm a big Gary V. I mean, back in the OG days of Daily V. And I know he's doing some. It was amazing. And it's all about what I would call monetizing the eyeballs, right? It's attention. Attention is the currency or what you're looking to get. And so when I look for guests, not only is it within my ICP, right? Not only is it within the target market that I'm looking for, that I want Valisights to help, but I also want to make sure that it's getting in front of enough eyeballs so that it's relevant.
So I'm going to play the devil's advocate here, Albert. Hope you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Why LinkedIn? Because you could be looking for guests who have a big followership on TikTok or on Instagram or, on whatever, Facebook. Is LinkedIn where the FP&A activity is?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And there's a couple routes I'll take here. Number one, what we found is from a business to business, professional to professional, we found a lot of traction using LinkedIn, specifically around our target market. And so we really enjoy that. There's far better conversations and you can sift through the noise a lot faster, in my opinion, compared to TikTok, which great platform, Instagram, great platform, and even Facebook, great platform. The other route I want to take, and this is more of a personal thing, so now we're going to jump into it. So about 3 or 4 years ago, and I've chatted about this in some other podcasts, unfortunately, and I'm okay talking about it, I developed a panic disorder, anxiety disorder, if you want to call it a disorder. Things were just going on, right? And thankfully, I've tempered down the alarms internally. And I promised myself, just with all the inputs that are going on out there, I promised myself to stay on one platform. And I love the platform that I chose, which is LinkedIn.
Man, that's very interesting. So, first of all, I didn't know. Respect for that and respect for talking about it. And
My pleasure, yeah.
is that important, the singular point of focus on one platform to make sure that you nail it down properly? I mean, I agree with that. Is the plan at some point to go on other platforms, or you solely want to stay on LinkedIn?
I think the best strategy, as I mentioned earlier, around getting in front of eyeballs is more than likely we will branch out into Instagram is pretty hot. I'm not sure if we're ready for a TikTok, although that seems to be really prevalent and popular, especially for the up and comer. When you think about AI and you think about this next generation, this next wave of leadership, that's probably a correct strategy. And so we're looking forward. The good news is we have a ton of content, right? So as you use podcast studio platforms like Riverside or even EveMux, right, and some others, your ability to cut things up, we'll probably get into it, but behind the scenes, it's not too many humans in the loop. A lot of the things from scripting to prepping to question research to anything and everything that leads to the production of the Valisights podcast is very AI driven agent.
Nice.
And so we're able to keep the costs very, very, very minimally. And allow just for us to focus more on the connection as we're doing here versus some of the very hard things that people don't realize. There's a lot going on behind the scenes to develop a 30-minute and sometimes even a 10-minute to a 60-minute long form plus podcast. There's a lot that goes into it, including post-production too, which we also use AI for to cut things up and to get it ready for distribution.
Let's go there, man.
I love it.
So how do you enable AI agents for podcast production and post-production? What do you do exactly?
Yeah, great question. So I really enjoy making sure that the guest who we're having on has little to nothing to do other than show up and have a conversation, right? So the easier we make it, the less tension points, right? The more often you'll get a yes, and you'll make sure that they show up, they're on time, and they're ready to rock. And then that includes some of the actions post. So I use GPTs and agents for copyright, right? Content generation, to get into my, and they're not really secrets. I'm sure others are doing it, but I will do the research or even have the agent do the research on your LinkedIn profile. Probably go down about 90 to 120 days versus of posts. And all of that and any articles that we can find, any publications that we can find online. And again, when I say we, the agent, the way it's trained, will find. And then it will develop not only my normal intro and closing. So now people, when you're listening, you'll know, you'll pick it up. But then also, about 20 to 25 questions. So we go and those are what it comes up with. Now I ask my follow-up questions, things like that. So I personally like long form. It's just like sitting with someone in the living room or out back on the porch having a beer, and we can have a conversation about things that we like. But leading up to that, it's all AI produced, all AI driven. And then, if need, I'll take a peek, I'll scrub through, right? I'm doing, a good handful of these every week, releasing one a week. And so I'll scrub through just to make sure. And then I also run through it with the guests just to make sure anything is, just to make sure that nothing's off limits.
Interesting.
You never know. You never know.
That is true.
Yeah.
That's the magic of podcast though, right?
That's right.
You record an episode and then you can edit out anything. It's not live unless you make it live.
I've done those. And actually personally,
cool.
And this is more of a probably selfish thing. I personally like the live because you have to challenge your communication skills. And I also do think over the last, 5-6 years, I think the public who is far more savvy with their news, with the notifications and details that they watch on TV, or even now far more on social media, they want the truth. And I think there's a challenge on what is truly the truth. And when you're live, I think people are really enjoying the authentic, raw and messiness, as I call it. And so while people get a little uncomfortable, maybe initially when they hear we're going to go live, and yes, there are some challenges on that because you got to be quick and you have to know your stuff. It's okay to mess up. I let people know don't worry. It's if you mess something up or you stumble over your words, I may too. I may have my filler words that I typically have that I can't edit with AI live. And I'm sure that will come soon. I think
Sure.
it does challenge you. It challenges your communication skills. And I think people like it a lot more versus recordings. Now, I'm not saying recordings are bad because people love the content if the content's good, right? But I do think, at least from what I've gathered, the hits, the impressions, all of it are far higher when it's live. Because again, people want to see the raw, even behind the scenes.
I've been hesitating for a long time to do those episodes live. And now, Albert, you're convincing me more and more. So I've taken notes of moving forward, I'm going to propose all my guests to go live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and let's see what happens.
I love
Can
it.
be fun.
If you go live, pick me first. Let's do it. Let's just get it out of the way.
We'll 100% do that.
Excellent.
No, but I think you hit on something very interesting here that I want to double down on. Nowadays, especially with AI, anybody can claim anything on internet, really.
Right.
And there's only a few ways to walk around this, right? So the way we chose to go about it is we ask our clients for video testimonials. I mean, the best scenario is when you talk to a potential client, you go to their home with 10 of your existing clients who look exactly like them, and they all go and shake their hands saying, yeah, no, you can trust this guy. I've worked with him. Well, hardly logistically doable. So the best alternative is eventually a video testimonial. I think the live aspect of podcast, what you just explained here, is you can't get it more true, right? And that's going to come with hiccups and fails and mistakes, but that's part of it.
Right.
And when you talk about eyeballs and potentially monetizing those eyeballs, if those eyeballs trust you, you've won. And live is a good way to go about it. Definitely going to do some podcast interviews live.
You're definitely spot on if you think about it. Especially with the introduction or now more prevalence of AI, the human connection is more important than ever before. And humans aren't perfect, right? Humans aren't this perfect sentence with that perfect dash, with the perfect emoji that AI outputs, right? So I think what we're looking for is relatability, right? And so when it's live, when it's messy, when it's real and authentic, it's like, I like that person did that. That's kind of cool that they didn't, there's some humility there. There's some vulnerability, or what I would call being emotionally available. Man, they're just hustling out like I am. I want to watch this some more. I trust that person even more than being cookie cutter, polished all the way through. That's what I think people are looking for, at least in this podcast world, which is, I think it's getting another spike, right? Because of everything that's happening internationally or even domestically here in the U.S. You're seeing a lot of politicians jumping in, so now it's even more heightened, right? The Joe Rogan effect, the other ones, the Lex effect, and all of that.
100%. So I love what you're referring to here, like Donald Trump going on Joe Rogan's and then flagrants as well. I think it's Volodymyr Zelensky, I'm afraid I'm butchering his word, who went on Lex Fridman's.
That's right.
You just see here the value of a 3 hours conversation with somebody and the exposure that gives you.
I watch every minute, and sometimes I'm like, why did I just listen through all those ads? I do it because there's a trust factor and I'm entertained, and there's so many gems. In long form too, you just get so much.
How do you get people to consume it, though, Albert? Because your podcast, right, the Valisights Podcast, is 5 episodes in, I believe.
That's right.
What's your strategy to get people to come and engage with? I understand that for you, that one-on-one conversation with your guests is going to be super important, and I guess there's a bit of networking behind it as well. But what about the audience? How do you plan, and how are you already executing on this? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a lot of going on, right? So I'm going to refer to it as a marketing kit. And as I mentioned, I don't want the guests to do too much other than later post-production post. So we have outfitted them with a pre and post-production marketing kit. We use something similar, whether it be thumbnails, content for posts, and we give examples, and then even clips post-production so that they have their own content. Because I know, especially those that we're choosing that are active on LinkedIn, they want that too, right? We're always looking for more content, from newsletter to video to posts to all of it, right? And so again, just creating less of I'm giving it to you wrapped in a bow, here you go. Just my expectation is, I'm very clear with the expectation. Here's what it looks like for the next 60 to 90 days on your end if you really want to make this work. And we do something similar on our end. So there's a lot of promoting.
Interesting.
And it's minimal, not to, saturate the LinkedIn feed. And then post, it's quite a bit more, quite more frequently. And then so if you look at our newsletter, my newsletter, as well as some of my partners' newsletters or LinkedIn articles, right? I think they're similar there, which, by the way, I just found out about maybe 5 months ago. I won't mention the name, but he's a big restaurant consultant and he's very active on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And he said, why don't you have your LinkedIn newsletter? I'm like, what the heck is that? He's like, you're going to get clients directly. I'm telling you. He was like, I will bet it. I'll give you a free XYZ that he said. And sure enough, just like that. So using some of these, I think people would call those magnets. I don't come from marketing, but I'd imagine lead magnets, right? So that would be one of them where you have, our Spotify link to podcast, the Valisights Podcast, or in some of our posts and just understanding too. I think everyone's trying to figure out this LinkedIn algorithm, right? It's like, do you put the link in the post? Do you put it in the comments, right? Like what? So just testing those things too. So
that's an interesting one. So do you convert the podcast episodes into a newsletter? Is that what you're saying? Or how do you go about the LinkedIn newsletter?
Great question. Both.
Okay.
Right. So along the way, even looking at your content, right, along the way, I learned that you can take much of what's going into your post and cut those things up. Actually, you know what? That also reminds me of a good book. Speaking of Gary Vee, it's called Jab, Jab. There's jab, jab, right hook, right? And
I think there are 3 jabs. Jab, 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 hook.
Jab, 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 right hook.
Give,
Jab, jab, jab. Exactly.
Give, take. Yeah.
It's within that book. And then I remember years ago, he had this massive digital PDF version of each one of the social media platforms and how you can repurpose your content, right? And it's nothing revolutionary. It was just right there all in one place. And so that's always been in the back of my mind is, okay, so you have a video clip or a podcast episode. How can you repurpose it into clips, right? So video content. How can you then take that into, and a lot of people haven't used this. I've realized when I talk about it, I'm like, what the heck is that? If you go to Notebook LM, right, from Google, you can take your podcast episode, feed it, and right away have a transcript. And I could even work with that on creating LinkedIn posts, a newsletter. And I won't get into a lot of it just so I don't lose anyone, but you can use platforms like NAN to develop an agent who is grabbing all these things for you, including things that aren't your content, maybe the most popular AI articles or the most popular finance articles or the most, whatever your niche is, it can grab it for you, cut it up into let's call it a 1,000-word newsletter, can cut it up into 5 LinkedIn posts. I know we won't get into this, but it just makes me, it makes me think about, I see a lot of postings recently about marketing roles, and I'm just kind of shaking my head a little bit just on the titles right now, not going too deep on the job description. But I think about what I just mentioned. And by the way, I do consult for many organizations, including marketing organizations. One of my podcasts was with the CEO of a local marketing company that's very well known. And we completely shifted the entire headcount.
Good.
Right? Reposition. But also in some cases didn't need the job anymore. So as I talk about copyright, I talk about cutting and editing. These are some things that don't require too much human in the loop
anymore. And
it's only going to get better. So I think as a leader, you got to think, right? And this is now my finance hat on, right? You think about that payroll expense item, your benefits line item. I think about, how are you future-proofing your financials, your team? How are you evolving and how are you using these tools? And again, the reason why I don't want to go too deep into NAN, you don't need to know how to build, right? There's people that know how to do that. But what I tell people is the future of leadership is this, and I'll release the episode soon. It's with a gentleman by the name of Sean Barnes.
Exciting.
Speaking of executive presentation and communication skills and all of that, we had a great conversation. It got a little deep. It started getting to the route of conspiracy theories, but we won't get into that. But I got what we were chatting about is the future leader is going to need to have the ability to delegate to a human or allocate resources to a human, delegate or allocate resources to AI, which can be various things, an avatar, an agent, a GPT, and then what we know as the basic AI, right? Agentic workflows. And then the thing, and I love that Sean brought it up before me, I'm like, wow, you don't hear a lot of people talking about this unless you're really into it, is robotics. And people think, wow, that's 10 years out. It's already here. So your ability to delegate and allocate resources to a human, right? So I know a human should own this. I know AI can own this. and I know that robotics can own this, I'm going to have them own this project or part of the project and things like that. So you think about podcasting, same thing,
100%.
right? Who should own the human aspect, right? And I know, like in this case, it's human to human.
I think
right?
so. Are you an AI, Albert?
Yeah, I know exactly. I'm not. Look, it's me.
How
it's
can
me.
you
I
prove
am not
that?
an
We're gonna
avatar.
prove that.
It's not this. Don't go there with me because that is a great question. That is a great question. But yeah, so you think about human to human now, right? In this case, on the connection piece, although people are playing with bot to bot AI, I've done the same, and it's actually pretty cool. It's not there yet, but it will be, and people will consume it, right? It will be avatar, bot on bot. It will make it look human so that we can relate and be entertained by it or engaged to it. But that will be, it's already happening now. And then you think about behind the scenes, right? The pre, during, and post production is going to be owned significantly, because it already is now, if you're doing it, AI.
Oh, there is so much to go into here. No, but I love this. So you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by somebody using AI better than you. And I think at any level of anything, there's going to be a need for some level of human interaction, but how well you leverage all the tools. And actually, you mentioned some tools that I didn't even know of, so I'm definitely going to check on this NAN, NAN. But like, you can go so much faster with AI. I would just mention, though, make sure that it's not at the expense of the results, right?
Sure.
What you want to bear in mind is to get results. But that's the whole point of doing business, I guess. But I love it. And you've definitely gone down the rabbit hole, Albert. So congrats.
Yeah. No, I like what you said. It's speed, precision, and more importantly, quality.
Amen.
Absolutely.
So why the podcast format, though? For you specifically, man, I understand that there are many CFOs, controllers, basically financial professionals, right? As you mentioned at the beginning of this talk, that want to talk about their problems and their successes and share their story. But for you, for Valisights, for your fractional CFO services, or maybe for another reason that we don't know yet, why the podcast and not, like going to conferences, for instance? You also have a human aspect in this, or do a YouTube channel. You can also have some people on the, video recording. Why the podcast?
Yeah, great question. So to the point of in-person conferences and things like that, I really do enjoy that, right? So typically I get tapped on the shoulder to get on stage. I think I did a recent post on LinkedIn about that. The World Finance Forum, that was a ton of fun. So whether it be, emceeing or a keynote speaker, typically I get those invitations and I really enjoy those. I do. I love the in-person, although, and that, again, to go down the rabbit hole, one day that will be a virtual experience. I don't think you'll have to attend in person, which that will be great so from a Meta to a VR, it's already happening and we're testing, I'd say people are testing it, we are testing it, people are testing it. Not too much going into there, but what I love about the podcast, especially the long form, is just being able to have a conversation, right? And you think about some of the barriers of distance, right? Your ability to do this, right? And I think it became more prevalent, this virtual conversation post the pandemic. I don't really like talking about 2020 too much. We're far gone, but it did spike, right? You think of the Zoom, the Teams, the Google Meets and all of that. And then podcasting really took a big spike here as of recently over the last 2 to 3 years. It was hot and then it kind of died and then it got hot again. And I think it will continue to be the wave of the future. And I'm looking forward to it. I do think, and not to go down a different path, you just got me thinking now, one day I'll be able to purchase a seat at your podcast when you're talking to a far better guest than I, but I'll get to purchase a seat.
Underselling yourself.
I'll get to purchase a seat through a subscription model and be able to be there with you in the room virtually. You think about that. So back to Joe Rogan, I want to see him. I want to see his assistant, his partner that's always doing the research. And I want to be in the room while Elon Musk is, doing what Elon Musk does in front of him.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, whatever that is, right? But actually be there versus the box or audio that I just watch it only on. But imagine being there and really feeling like you're there.
Man, so it's so funny. There is this. So you mentioned some big names. So Joe Rogan obviously has the biggest podcast. Right. That's what he has going for him, I guess. Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom. His thing is the most highly ended produced video quality podcast. Diary of a CEO, right, would be more around the trailers, iterating,
Right.
the thumbnails are now copied by everybody. And I'm like, I would love to be among the first niche podcast in a VR space. Like you record and then you can join, right, as a listener, not just audio, but you can put your mask on and be like between Guillaume and Albert discussing podcasting, AI in the same room. That would be so awesome. And I'm sure that's around the corner. I'm sure this is going to
We
happen.
need to chat.
Yeah.
Testing.
Let's have another talk afterwards.
Absolutely.
Live. Imagine this.
Oh, I like that. Yes. Throw the wrench. I like it.
Back to the business, Albert. How is the podcast helping the business, if at all, right? Like, how do you make the link? Because your time is obviously valuable. You're tapped on the shoulder to go to conferences. I mean, you surely have better things to do than sitting in front of a mic and a screen and somebody who may be AI, who knows? What aspects, how does it impact your business to have the podcast?
Yeah, great question. And no, it is a good ROI. Number one, you have this, what you can consider as a private in the sense of having the conversation, obviously public when released, but this private conversation with an existing client base, right? I do that, as well as a prospective client base, potential client base, right? My ICP. And great. People are going to hear me say this word, but it's like you trap them in a room. They're so busy. I'm going to trap you in this room and we're going to talk. We're going to talk about it. I may pitch you post or pre the recording and the actual podcast episode and all of that.
Here we go.
Before we get into the questions. So there's a little bit of that, I'll be honest, but no, it's from a return on investment, again, engagement of your existing client base, but also one, promotion of a perspective. People love that, right? They want their brand to be promoted, and then it promotes our brand, right? In this case, the Valisights Podcast for Valisights, and people can check it out at www.valisights.com, right? So we can promote the brand that way. It then generates a ton of content too within our, as of now, LinkedIn platform. Yeah. And then from there can convert, right? Now, referrals is still a high percentage, but that being said, like I mentioned, we released a newsletter and quickly got clients from that, because that's how they like to consume their content. And something stood out, right? Something was a gem for them that said, you know what? I want to learn more. Well, right. Then you have your video content from your podcast or long form if they're listening that way. And we get clients from it, whether it be the existing prospective guest or prospective client that's on the show and actually the guest, or someone that maybe they're connected with on LinkedIn, someone that saw it on their feed or ours and wants to learn more. So going back to that phrase, the lead magnet, these are all just different ways that can get people in front of our team, myself and the others on the Valisights team, so that we can share what we do and how we can solve for their pain points.
Podcast for B2B lead gen, ladies and gentlemen, masterclass here.
I don't know about that, but it's trying.
Yeah, no, I mean, brand building, talking to your ICP, even if it's just relationship, right? Like understanding what they go through, their pain points, their desired outcome, their successes, getting to know them. I mean, who is it? It's Steve Jobs. I mean, everybody's saying this, but like talk to your customers, right? Talk to your clients. Even if you had the highest levels of the, Fortune 500 companies, talking to your customers is so valuable. That's what you can do with the podcast.
Even testing, I was going to tell you, even you made me think of it, even testing, right? So I have a new feature. Right. And at the time of this right now, and it'll be released soon, but imagine having, going back to AI, an agent that is integrated within your ERP, or let's call it not your ERP, your QuickBooks Online. Many people use that. Imagine having an agent. You can't get a hold of me because, maybe it's late hours, right? I need some sleep too. And you can't get a hold of me, but you have your Val AI agent, and you can now ask it, you know what, who owes me money? Tell me more about my accounts receivable. And versus calling me, emailing me, texting me, because you have access to me or my team at Valisights, right? Or even the reporting, this agent can now go within your ERP or QuickBooks, as well as all the reporting and things that we generated for you. And you can quickly get it. And I'm telling you, it's within 5 seconds.
This is so good.
And now I'm thinking more absolute. It's under wraps, and I guess I'll be announcing it right here on the show. But imagine, so I want to make it better. So I'll use the podcast to test, to ask questions. What would you like to see out of that agent? And so I'm documenting all those things, capturing all of it, and making some of the features or even existing product lines better.
I love this, man. And so my next question is, you seem to be nailing it. What's the main challenge that you encountered podcasting, Albert? If any, right? And if none, we just move on to the next question. But anything that wasn't as easy as you planned or you thought it was going to be? Like what were the main challenges?
I think, and especially coming from the finance world and no challenge to the marketing crew, right? But sometimes I just want to see how the marketing data, meaning like likes, impressions, clicks, etc., lead better to the dollar, right? And it's so funny. Sometimes it adds up. In our end, I'll just speak to Valisights. Sometimes it adds up like, wow, yeah, the consumption, the clicks, the view led to this client X dollar amount. And then sometimes this just happens, this client X dollar amount. And I'm like, how did that happen? Because there was barely any consumption view engagement. And so that's, I think, whether it be better data, whether it be things within that, the funnel leading to client and the dollar, right? So conversion. Maybe that's, I would say, is the biggest challenge, is getting it to click. Because sometimes it's just like, wow, that was awesome. I don't know how that happened, but it worked.
So that's going to be, I'm not going to say number one issue in podcasting, but it's definitely one of the big issues, attribution.
Right.
Like knowing where your lead came from and like how many touch points they had with you.
Right.
Social media ads, super easy to track, right? Literally, you can track the whole process. It's also direct response kind of marketing. With podcasts, it's a bit different, but I would say it's also much more of a long-term vision, right?
Right.
And you can put the UTMs and the proper tools to track this, but I get you.
Yeah.
What were your biggest successes? Like, what are you super happy with the podcast about?
The lineup, number one.
Mm-hmm.
We launched this organization, and it's, we've been testing for about 2 years, but we launched it full go-to-market about 3 months ago.
Okay.
At the time of this recording. And I was so surprised, and it could be just some, going to, I don't know if this will be a topic, but personal branding, right? I had a followership on LinkedIn, so some built relationships already. But even then, there's some big players that are within the podcast lineup that I didn't necessarily have, at least I didn't think, had a relationship with. And so the immediate buzz that, yes, I'll be on, let me know when. I was very surprised by that. So I'm really happy about the lineup, because I think the guest, the power of the guest, not just the followership and the eyeballs, but the power of the guest is so important, right? Especially, in this first year of doing this. So I'm really excited about that. And going back to quality, right? The power of the guest and the quality of expertise that will be shared, I think. And the way I like to ask questions is, if people are already listening, or if you do in the future to the podcast, you'll notice, like, I like to get into it, right? We're going to have a real conversation and talk about not just the good, or even, we don't focus actually too much on promotion or pitching or anything like that, actually minimal. It's about, give me the challenges, give me the raw, because people want that. I want to know too. I'm entertained and engaged by that. So I'm really excited about the lineup. I saw it on LinkedIn the other day. I didn't know this, that, for instance, we use Spotify to upload everything on, and you can find it there. But what I found is the big metric there is new subscribers, right? So the algorithm is promoting your podcast more when you have more new people coming to your platform there, to your show and to your episodes. And so going back to, what do I track and how do I integrate it into the newsletter, posts, things like that? It's not just about maintaining and taking care of those that are already on your podcast, but it's about your new acquisition. And so how you link everything to, and every piece of content that you have, for the most part, right? Maybe not everything, but for the most part, for the large majority of if that's where I want people to go, the new is obviously pushing. So that was really interesting. I did not know that. So that's a challenge, not necessarily a good thing yet, but a good to know, so that I know strategically how to go about it. But yeah, the lineup, the quality that I think is going, I'm really happy about that. And then obviously the behind the scenes, just the minimal cost, So I've talked to people that, I have a team of 18 helping me with this, very good audio, video, very good production. So got it. I mean, I just, and I won't say it, but then I ask them, so what's the payroll line item? And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's a lot. And so I think about what we're able to do, and maybe it's not yet to the caliber of some major ones, but I think about what we're putting out there, what it's converting to. And then you look at the payroll line item, because of AI, GPTs and agents, significantly low.
Love this. To double down on one on your point, Albert, because I think that's gonna be helpful for the audience. So subscribers count 100%, and actually that's true for Apple Podcasts, Spotify. So I guess when you say to get the platform to push your content further, it's potentially ranking in the charts,
right,
and having it showcase more.
Exactly.
So for this, obviously the platforms are super opaque, not transparent when it comes to those metrics, because like Google, they want to keep it secret, so nobody cheats it really. Apple Podcast has communicated a bit about it. So it's number of downloads, retention rate, and subscribers/new subscribers that you get within a short period of time, ideally 48 hours. And the more of those you get, the higher the likelihood that you rank in the charts. And this is such a good system, in my opinion, because it allows you and for new podcasts to rank in the chart. If it was only based on the raw number of the downloads, like absolute number at any point in time, not the growth, then it would always be the biggest podcast anyways that rank in the charts and not leaving any chance to the new ones.
Right.
But if you genuinely have great content, if you do have great marketing, bringing new people on, and that once they start listening, they listen till the end, and then they're like, wait a second, I want more. And they subscribe to be notified when the next episode is going to go live. This shows that you have good content. Spotify and Apple Podcasts, like any platforms, what they want is more users staying longer on their platform. So if you help them do that, so those are the metrics you need to track 100% if your objective is audience growth and ranking in the charts indeed.
Thank you for that. It's good.
We didn't talk a lot about your fractional CFO services. What's there? Is that something that you do in parallel of Valisights? Is there a bit of podcast strategy in there as well, or is that completely separate?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've been in the health and fitness space, or was, from a corporate side of things in the corporate arena for about 15, 16 years. Along the way, I was tapped on the shoulder to help others with their health and fitness or wellness business, and some others, retail, manufacturing, et cetera, et cetera. And so it actually started, oh my goodness, I forget her name, but she used to say, I'm not, and this is back like the OG influencers, even on LinkedIn. And she would say, I'm not your grandma's financial advisor.
Perfect.
I thought that was, I've always had a finance background coming out naturally. Yeah, it was great. I'm like, oh, it's like a millennial / whatever. I'm going to watch her. And I just love the stuff that she would do. So it made me think about, well, I'd love to help people with their finances. So I started a company by the name of Educate Your Pockets. So it was cool, man. I was testing everything. I was had my GoPro, I was recording everything. And then I realized, shoot, I'm not a great editor. So I had to learn that. I just learned so many things. But that eventually evolved to Stratego, which happens to be one of my favorite board games, that and chess, but Stratego. And it was because people were not only asking for the personal finances, they would then ask me, the people that I was working with, they would then ask me, well, do you mind lifting up the hood to my business and helping me there? I'm like, actually, I'm even more passionate about that. Let's do it. And so it transformed into Stratego. And that's what I've been doing over the last 7 years. And it's gotten a lot bigger just with personal branding, far more connections, referrals, trust established, credibility established. And so that's been a lot of fun. So I was doing that. And actually, that's how Jason Wells, connected about this idea of and this proof of concept of Valisights. And so what's great about it is I'm able to put on my CFO hat, right? As I've built manual cash flow forecast models and your 3-statement models and getting ready for any type of pitching to investors or board of directors or your ELT team, private equity. And so I'm able to take that lens, like our ICP. I am Valisights ICP, right? And so I'm able to put that, look at things from that lens as we're developing things, and talking through some things and some pain points that we're solving for. So it's really worked out. But yeah, Stratego Intel Consulting, and my niche, right? And I would get this all the time because I'm one where I want to help everyone, and I kept getting that feedback. No, you need a niche down. Yeah. I'm like, great. What's my niche? They're like, well, where'd you come from? What's your expertise over the last, X years of your career? I'm like, Well, yeah, that's easy. Health and fitness. Well, there you go. You've been doing it. Just make that your niche. So when you see my website or even LinkedIn,
100%.
you'll see that. But I also am involved in other industries, pretty industry agnostic, although I go pretty hard on the health and fitness and wellness side, which I really enjoy this new wave of longevity and wellness.
A lot of people are going down that route, which is good.
Yeah,
actually,
we're talking
which is
behind
really
the
good.
scenes. I was injecting myself with
There we go.
peptides and all of this stuff.
Caffeine,
Coffee.
everything.
I got all the fuel.
Well, sometimes that's necessary when you're gonna do 3-4 podcast recordings in a day. What's the number, Albert, today?
It's up there.
Yeah,
It's a good one.
Around those
All
numbers.
prepped, by the way. I'm good. It's all the agents are taking
I
care of
trust that.
everything. Yeah, I'm
been
good.
working.
Not to worry. They have been working.
They don't need sleep.
That's true.
Albert, there is a question that I like to ask to all my guests at the end of those interviews. So there is Jeff Bezos, right? Who, when he built Amazon, he wasn't trying to guess and understand what's going to be true in 10 years or what's going to change in 10 years. He's always asking himself, what's not going to change in 10 years? People are still going to want things cheap, fast, certain, without risk, a great customer service. So this is what he's doubling down since, 37 years of Amazon, whatever. So my question to you is, now that you're in the podcast game and clearly you're nailing it with the AI agents, what's still going to be true in podcasts 10 years from now that you would recommend podcasters or wannabe podcasters to double down on?
Your ability to storytell. And I want to get so much better at that. I'll tell you, my wife will tell you, I'm not the best storyteller. She's far more witty and she's far funnier than I am, right? But I think the ability to storytell, whether that's a human on a podcast telling a story or an AI agent or what have you, right? When people want to be entertained, like I'm a big movie buff, right? I love watching movies and shows and things like that.
Nice.
Whatever that piece is, movie, book, some newspaper, whatever it is, people want to be entertained, right? They want to feel emotion, and you do that through storytelling. And that could be they want to feel great, or they want to figure out, why am I not great, or they want to laugh. We want to feel human. I think it's going to be far more. I think of EQ, right? All the studies and everything about EQ and emotional intelligence was truly ahead of its time. I think those that put that out there probably knew of this wave of intelligence that was coming. Maybe not. But now that the intelligence is here and it's getting even better, what's going to be more prevalent in our personal and professional lives is your EQ, right? So your self-management, self-awareness, your social management, social awareness, and I say your ability to communicate, your ability to connect, your ability to storytell is going to be your superpower. If it's already your superpower, you're ahead of the game, and you'll see.
I love this, and that's probably also, AI is going to be great at storytelling for sure. It's not fully there yet, but it's going to be good. But a human being able to make other human relate and storytelling right is for sure going to be there in 10 years.
Right.
Albert, thank you so much for coming on Podcast Gurus. If people want to find out more about you, Valisights, or anything else, where should they go?
Yeah, a couple different ways. Thanks. Speaking of our podcast, it's the Valisights Podcast. You can find us on Spotify, or just follow me on LinkedIn. You'll see the links, as I mentioned. But yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is to DM me on LinkedIn. It's Albert Ramos Jr. And then the websites that I mentioned earlier, you have www.strategointel.com or www.valisights.com.
Here we go. We'll put all the links in the description. Albert, thank you so much for coming on Podcast Gurus.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. This is excellent. And I'm going to continue to follow your great content. I stole all your secrets.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.